never imagined that her body could become the only thing keeping alive the child of a man she had never met. She wasn't a hero, nor an angel in scrubs. Maya was just an ordinary woman trying to survive the weight of everything she carried. Her mornings began before the sun rose, with the familiar cry of her daughter Lily from the crib beside her bed. She would lift the baby gently, warm a bottle, and hum softly as she rocked her in her arms. Her eyes still heavy with sleep, her hair tied up in a messy bun, her blouse wrinkled and unpressed. This was Maya, every single day, stepping out of her third-floor apartment where the walls flaked and the floorboards creaked with every step. She worked as a medical social worker at St. Mercy Hospital, one of the largest public hospitals in New York City. Her job wasn't to save lives with scalpels or machines, but through listening, guiding, and standing beside families in crisis. She helped patients find insurance, connected them to community resources, and sometimes simply sat quietly with a wife who had just lost her husband or a father who had been told his child wouldn't make it. It wasn't glamorous. No headlines ever mentioned her name, but Maya loved what she did. Even when it drained her, it gave her a sense of purpose, that she was doing something good, however small. She never thought life would lead her here. Back in college, studying social psychology, she once dreamed of a quiet little life, a kind husband, a warm kitchen, and a child laughing in the backyard. But her junior year romance didn't end in a ring. It ended with a back turned away in the rain after she whispered, "I'm pregnant." Since then, Maya had walked alone. No support, no co-parenting, just her, Lily, and an iron will that her daughter would never feel abandoned, the way Maya once had as a child. She didn't know that one day a simple act of kindness, an instinct as natural as breathing, would become the turning point of everything. But on that night, under the cold fluorescent lights of the hospital, it did. It was supposed to be just another night shift. Maya had just finished pumping in the staff break room, storing the milk for Lily, knowing that by morning she'd be rushing out the door before her daughter even opened her eyes. She slumped into the plastic chair, pressing one hand against her lower back, sore from nearly 10 hours on her feet. Her whole body ached with exhaustion, but she knew the night wasn't over, not for her, and certainly not for her baby, waiting at home. The quiet was brief. A sudden alarm echoed through the hallway. Code red in the ER. Maya didn't hesitate. Her body moved before her mind did. She knew the difference a single minute could make. A pregnant woman had been brought in after a brutal car accident. A delivery truck had slammed into her car on the freeway. It had all happened so fast. Her heart had stopped before the ambulance even reached the hospital, but the trauma team decided to perform an emergency C-section in a last attempt to save the baby. The tension in the OR was palpable. No family followed behind, no husband, no parents, no one knew who the woman was. Within 10 minutes, a premature baby boy was delivered, tiny, limp, and pale. A nurse gave him a temporary name, Baby Boy A. Maya wasn't in the OR, but she followed every detail through the hospital intercom. She knew what premature babies faced: underdeveloped lungs, fragile immune systems, bodies too weak to regulate warmth. But this one was even worse. He rejected formula. His body couldn't process the synthetic nutrients fed through the tube. His oxygen levels dropped hour by hour. In a frantic meeting between NICU staff, a young doctor finally asked, "Does anyone know a lactating mother? We need real milk, ideally direct breastfeeding." The room fell silent. Then a nurse quietly said, "What about Maya?" Every head turned. Maya froze. She didn't hesitate because of fear or embarrassment. She hesitated because she knew, once she held that baby, everything would change. Her heart wouldn't be able to stay separate. But then she nodded. A doctor gently took her hand, eyes full of hope. Maya was led into the neonatal intensive care unit. The infant was placed gently into her arms, his body cold, trembling. She lifted her shirt, held him skin to skin, and began to nurse. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. Within minutes, his heartbeat stabilized. A doctor quietly wiped his eyes. A nurse let out a sob. And Maya just sat there, saying nothing, holding on to a tiny life that had clung to her, completely unaware of how much it had just changed hers. Logan Reed arrived at the hospital 3 hours after his wife passed away. He had just wrapped up a board meeting at the headquarters of the biotech company he had built from the ground up when his phone lit up with over a dozen missed calls. By the time he finally answered, it was already over. His wife, Rachel, had gone into early labor, gotten into an accident on her way to the hospital, and hadn't made it. Now Logan stood frozen outside the NICU, staring through the glass. On the other side, a woman he didn't recognize cradled a newborn so small he barely looked real. She was nursing the baby, her arms steady, her expression calm, like the child in her arms belonged to her. No one had to explain. He knew. That was his son. Logan wasn't even sure what he felt in that moment: shock, grief, or just utter numbness. Everything had happened too quickly. He had lost his wife, missed the birth of his son, and was now witnessing a stranger doing the one thing no machine or doctor could do: keeping his child alive. Maya had no idea someone was watching. Her focus was entirely on the baby. One hand supported the infant's head, the other gently stroked his back. The trembling had stopped. The monitor beeped steadily. Finally, Logan stepped into the room. The quiet became deeper. Maya looked up. Their eyes met. Foreign, unsure, filled with unspoken weight. "Thank you," Logan said, his voice barely audible. He wasn't used to saying those words, especially not like this. Maya gave a slight nod, no reply. She looked back down at the baby in her arms as if the answer had already been given. She wasn't there for praise. She was there because the baby needed her. Over the next few days, Logan returned to the hospital daily. He didn't interrupt, didn't demand answers. He stood quietly, watching Maya feed his son, hold him, anchor him to life. Her every move was measured, but tender. Not clinical, not distant, just present. He started asking questions about vitals, weight, feeding intervals. Maya answered clearly, professionally. But underneath the medical updates was a woman giving everything to care for a child who wasn't hers. She didn't have to do it, but she did. They were from different worlds: Logan from boardrooms and billion-dollar ventures, Maya from creaky apartments and scraped-together days. And yet, between them lay a child, not even 5 pounds. And somehow, that was enough to draw them closer. Initially, the hospital planned for Maya to breastfeed for only a few days, just enough time to find a suitable milk donor or another alternative. But day after day, no substitute worked. Miles, the tiny, fragile newborn, only responded to Maya. Every time he was in her arms, his vitals improved. When she wasn't there, he became distressed, ate less, and even required oxygen support more than once. The doctors called it a biological attachment response. To Maya, it was just the instinct of a mother. 1 week later, in a medical briefing, Logan sat listening to the team talk about his son's condition. They spoke in numbers, charts, risk factors. But they all agreed on one thing: Maya was keeping his son alive, not just once, but every single day. After the meeting, Logan stepped into the hallway where Maya was preparing to leave for the night. She looked tired, but there was a clarity in her eyes, the kind that lived in people who never turned away when others needed them. "I have a proposal," Logan said, his voice low and steady. Maya turned, waiting. "I'd like to invite you to stay at my home, temporarily, just for a month or two, to continue feeding Miles in a calmer environment, with better care. I'll double your current pay. I'll also cover daycare for Lily, and you'll have your own space, fully private." Maya stayed quiet. She hadn't expected such an offer from the man who had, until now, barely spoken beyond a thank you. Not as a nurse, Logan added, reading her thoughts. Not as a nanny, as someone my son trusts. She looked at him for a long time. She didn't doubt his sincerity, but caution was natural. The line between kindness and dependence was always paper thin. I need clear conditions, she replied. I'll need my own space. I won't be responsible for anything beyond Miles. This is temporary. I need us both to remember that. Logan nodded. I understand, and I agree. They drafted a simple agreement with the hospital acting as mediator. Maya packed her things, lifted Lily into her arms, and moved into a sleek, modern estate, perched on a hill overlooking the Hudson River. The house was a different world. High ceilings, glass walls, everything minimalist and expensive. Maya moved quietly, unsure of how loud her footsteps should be, as if she might disturb the ghosts that lived in a place so silent, so untouched. But it was quiet in a way that felt unnatural. No laughter, no baby toys, no real life, just priceless art and the echo of grief. Logan arranged for Maya and Lily to have a private guest wing with a nursery, play area, and kitchenette. Lily adapted quickly. She giggled in the living room as if she'd always been there. Maya, in contrast, kept her distance. She reminded herself this wasn't her home, and her heart was more vulnerable than she wanted to admit. During the day, Maya nursed Miles according to a strict schedule. She logged every detail, emailed updates to the pediatric team each night. Logan didn't interfere. He simply watched from a respectful distance, gratitude and confusion flickering in his eyes. One evening, after Lily had gone to sleep, Maya sat alone in the small kitchen. She stared into the quiet house and wondered, what is this? A temporary job? A family forming? Or just a dream she shouldn't stay in for too long? She didn't know. All she knew was that, for the first time in years, she felt safe, even if only for a moment. In the early days of living in Logan's house, Maya kept everything within clear lines. She woke up early, fed Miles, sent reports to the doctors, took care of Lily, and avoided unnecessary conversations. Logan, too, kept his distance, swamped with meetings, conference calls, and emails. They were like strangers under one roof, connected only by a newborn fighting for his life. But things began to shift, not through dramatic events, but through small moments so quiet they were almost invisible. One evening, Miles had an upset stomach after feeding. Maya paced the living room with him in her arms. Instead of disappearing, Logan stepped forward. "Can I help?" he asked, hesitant. Maya studied him for a moment, then handed the baby over, showing him how to gently rub Miles's back, how to support his neck. Logan was slow but patient, and for the first time he made his son burp. His shy, almost startled smile lit up his face, and Maya found herself smiling back. From that point, Logan started showing up more. He asked how to change diapers, how to read Miles's cries, how to get Lily to laugh. Maya wasn't someone who shared easily, but something softened in her each time Logan fumbled with a bottle or read a bedtime story in his stiff, overly formal voice. One night, after feeding Miles, Maya sank into the sofa. Logan appeared with 2 mugs of tea. "I thought you could use this," he said. They sat together in a quiet that felt peaceful, not strained. "How long have you been doing this alone?" Maya hesitated. No one had ever really asked, not like this. "Since my 3rd month," she said slowly. "He couldn't handle the pressure. Said he wasn't ready to be a father. I told him I didn't need anything, just his presence. But he still left." She paused, eyes on her hands, neatly trimmed nails, chipped polish, long forgotten. "There were nights I didn't sleep, not because Lily cried, but because I was terrified. Terrified I wouldn't be enough. That one day she'd ask why her father wasn't there. I had no one to text at 3 a.m. when her fever wouldn't break, no one to ask if I was doing any of it right. Logan said nothing. He just listened. But eventually, Maya continued, her voice softer. I learned how to do everything alone. I changed light bulbs. I read articles on how to reduce a baby's fever naturally. I practiced talking out loud, just so the apartment wouldn't feel so quiet. She gave a faint laugh, part self-mockery, part survival. Logan was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke, slowly, like the words had waited a long time to come. Rachel and I were married for 8 years. She was the only person who ever made me believe the world didn't have to be controlled. She laughed at things I took too seriously, teased me until I was furious, then kissed me until I wasn't. His eyes drifted, focused far beyond the room. We tried for this baby for 2 years. When she finally got pregnant, I was more anxious than excited. She, on the other hand, smiled for a week straight. She made name lists, painted the nursery, took prenatal yoga, like every day was some kind of miracle. Maya stayed quiet. I wasn't there when she died, Logan said, voice barely a whisper. I'd turned my phone off for a meeting. I thought I'd call her back after, but there was no after left. He tightened his grip on the small pillow. I don't know if I deserve to be a father, but when I saw you holding Miles, when I saw him steady in your arms, I realized maybe I don't have to do everything alone. Maybe I just need to learn how to stay. Maya turned to him, their eyes meeting in a moment, both still and honest. And I think, she said quietly, sometimes having someone stay is already enough. He looked at her, silent. But for the first time, that silence didn't feel like a wall. As fall passed, things between them grew easier. Logan began waking up early to help with breakfast. One morning, he burned the pancakes beyond recognition, but Lily laughed so hard it became her favorite story to retell with baby words. Maya didn't want to admit it, but she began to look forward to those moments. She noticed how Logan held Miles, how he shifted from awkward to gentle, confident. She caught him watching her sometimes, his gaze lingering when he thought she wasn't looking. And worse, she began to think about the what-ifs, the very thing she had promised herself never to do. But the heart doesn't follow rules. It remembers who was there in the quietest moments. Late one night, after the children were asleep, Maya stepped into the backyard. Logan stood there, hands in his pockets, staring into the dark. This house is starting to have sound again, he said softly. I used to think it would always be silent. Maya didn't reply. She stood beside him, close enough to feel his warmth without touching. They didn't name it, but they both knew. Something was changing, slowly, steadily. The kind of feeling that doesn't need a label, only presence, held long enough to mean something real. Eventually, even the quietest truths make their way past the walls. One cold afternoon, Logan received news. A tabloid had just published a photo of him holding Miles, walking beside Maya, who was pushing Lily's stroller. The picture was blurry, taken from a distance, but clear enough. The headline read, Tech Billionaire Logan Reed Rebuilding His Family with a Mystery Single Mom. Within 24 hours, it had spread everywhere. Gossip blogs spun wild narratives, Maya as the nanny who seduced the boss, the opportunist who swooped in during grief. Some articles dug into her education, her finances, painting a version of her that felt like a stranger. Maya didn't know until a former coworker messaged, "Are you okay?" When she opened her phone and saw the headlines, Maya froze. She wasn't a celebrity. She was a social worker, a mother, a woman who never sought attention. But now her face was up for public consumption, dissected like some character she'd never agreed to play. That evening, she skipped dinner. Logan brought a tray up to her room, but she only shook her head. "What are you going to do?" she asked, voice soft but steady. Logan hesitated. Ignore it. The less we engage, the faster it fades. The media will move on. His answer landed like a cold wind. To you, it's just noise, Maya said. To me, it's my name. My daughter will grow up and Google this someday. And you just want to wait it out? He didn't reply, not because he didn't care, but because he didn't know what the right move was in a world where every move got twisted. But that was just the beginning. A week later, Logan's former mother-in-law, Veronica Shaw, showed up unannounced. Once a respected journalist, now a powerful board member of the family's charitable foundation, she had never liked Maya. She walked in like she still owned the place. She cuddled Miles, complimented Lily, then turned to Maya with a smile thin enough to see through. "You're the one who's been staying here with the baby?" she asked, overly polite. "Yes," Maya answered calmly. When Logan stepped out to take a call, Veronica stepped closer, her voice lowering. "I don't question your kindness, but I'm also not naive enough to believe you're only here for the child." Maya held her ground. "I'm here for Miles. Everyone knows that." Veronica tilted her head, that same empty smile. "We both know men like Logan don't keep women like you around, without reason." The words hit harder than Maya expected. That night, she sat alone, watching Lily sleep, heart caught between chaos and clarity. Not because of the insult, but because she knew she was standing on the edge of something fragile, a place that maybe, just maybe, she didn't truly belong to. Maya wasn't fragile. She had survived long nights of pregnancy alone, had stood in hospital corridors fighting for uninsured patients with nothing but a clipboard and her voice. But being exposed, treated like some media sideshow, made her feel unlike herself. After Veronica's visit, the air in the house shifted, not with arguments, but with silence and absences that hadn't existed before. Logan knew what had happened. He had overheard the brief but cutting exchange between Maya and his former mother-in-law. Maya expected him to say something, to push back, to defend her publicly, or even privately. But all he said was, "Don't let her get to you. She's hard on everyone." It was a thin curtain over a deep crack. "So you're just going to let her say that? To my face? In this house?" Maya asked. Logan sighed, voice tired. "I should have said something," Logan admitted, his voice low. "I didn't defend you, and that's on me. I was afraid of more conflict, but I see now silence was worse." "And me?" Maya asked, her voice lower. "Don't I deserve to be defended?" He didn't answer, and in that silence, Maya heard everything she needed to know. She could feed his child, bring warmth back into a cold house, stay up at 3 a.m., singing lullabies. But when the outside world attacked her, he chose the middle. No stance, no support, no choice. That night, she closed the door to her room but didn't sleep. She folded Lily's clothes, paired tiny socks, and then opened her old suitcase. Quietly. The next morning, she left a note on the kitchen counter. "Thank you for giving me a place to pause, but I can't stay where I'm seen as someone's replacement. I need to return to my own life before I forget who I am." By the time Logan found the note, Maya and Lily were gone. The room was empty, the closet bare, and the house had returned to exactly what it was before Maya ever came: pristine, orderly, and painfully silent. Maya returns to her old life. Maya's old apartment was exactly as she left it: peeling paint, creaky floors, a small kitchen with warm yellow light. But when she came back, it didn't feel the same. Not because it had changed, but because she had. Lily adjusted quickly. She returned to old routines, giggling when Maya tossed her into the air, staring out the window every morning as if waiting for something. But Maya didn't bounce back as easily. She took a job at a small community clinic nearby, where uninsured patients lined the halls and no one asked for credentials, just compassion. The work kept her hands busy, but her mind always wandered. Back to Miles, to his soft hair, his quiet cries, and the space Logan had once filled. She didn't answer his messages. Sometimes she opened them just to see his name, then locked her screen again. Logan thought he could drown the ache in meetings and endless work, but he was wrong. Miles didn't take to new nannies. He cried, refused bottles, wouldn't sleep unless soothed with the same lullaby Maya used to hum. Logan tried everything, her routines, her methods, her warmth, but nothing worked. The house returned to silence. Not peace, but emptiness. Then one night, Miles developed a fever. Nothing serious, the doctor said. But the crying didn't stop. Logan, for the first time since Maya left, felt helpless, not because of the fever, but because he realized he couldn't do this alone. He called her. His voice was low and strained. "Maya, I know you don't want to hear from me, but Miles is sick. He's crying, not eating, won't sleep. I'm not calling because I need you. I'm calling because he does." Maya was quiet for a long moment, then softly said, "I'll come, but just for Miles." She arrived late, carrying a small bag, bottles, soft blankets, and a steady, guarded expression. Logan opened the door. He looked worn, dark circles, rumpled shirt, tousled hair. Miles was red-faced and sobbing in his arms. When Maya took him, Miles calmed instantly. He pressed against her chest, whimpered once, then exhaled like he'd finally found something that had been missing. Logan stood back, wordless. After Miles fell asleep, Maya laid him down upstairs. When she returned, she headed toward the door. But Logan stood in the way, not blocking her, just there, as if he couldn't bear to let this moment go unspoken. "Maya," he started, voice raw. "You don't have to stay," he said. "I know you gave so much, and I didn't know how to hold on to it. I stayed silent when you needed me loud." She didn't speak, didn't harden either. She waited. "I used to think what I felt was gratitude," he continued, "but when you left, everything lost meaning. Not because there was no one to care for Miles, but because there was no you." He stepped closer. "I love you, not because you were there when I lost everything, but because you were there when I no longer knew who I was. You're not replacing anyone. You're what I didn't know I could deserve." Maya looked at him for a long moment. Her heart ached in familiar ways, but not painfully now, just honestly. She exhaled. "I don't know if I can come back," she said. "But this time, I need to know. If I do, you won't stand silent again, right?" Logan nodded, slowly, surely. "I won't stand still. I'll stay because of you. Not Miles, not guilt, just love." Maya didn't respond right away. She simply nodded, softly, as if allowing herself to breathe again after holding it in for too long. She left that night without promises, without refusal. But Logan knew. Something had opened between them. Quiet, fragile, but real. He thought things were beginning to find their rhythm again. Everything seemed to be falling back into place. Until the letter arrived. It came one afternoon, just after Maya had picked Lily up from daycare and started prepping dinner. A crisp envelope from the New York State Health Department, stamped in red, sat on her kitchen counter. The moment she saw it, she knew. She didn't even have to open it to feel her stomach sink. Inside was an official notice. Someone had filed an anonymous complaint accusing her of ethical misconduct, specifically of engaging in a personal relationship with a patient's family member, Logan, while his son was still under critical medical care. There was no name, no evidence. But that didn't matter. The accusation alone was enough to launch a formal investigation and potentially cost Maya her license, her career, everything she'd built with care. She sat down at the kitchen table, gripping the page with trembling fingers. Lily played with her crayons beside her, humming softly, blissfully unaware that her mother's world had just tilted on its axis. Maya called Logan. He arrived within half an hour. As he read the letter, His expression hardened. "It's her," he said. "Veronica. She threatened something like this the day you left." "I don't want revenge," Maya said quietly, exhausted. "I just want the truth to matter. I didn't ask for special treatment. I didn't lie. I just want to be seen as a human being, not some tabloid headline." Logan placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "Then I'm done staying silent." The next day, Logan wrote a public post. No PR team, no edits, just his words, raw, unfiltered, honest. He told the story of that first night when Maya fed Miles and saved his son's life. He shared how she had shown up every day without asking for anything. He wrote, "If any ethics were violated, it's in punishing a woman for her compassion." The post went viral. Nurses, doctors, former patients all came forward with stories of Maya's kindness, her professionalism, her quiet strength. For the first time, the media paused to listen. 2 weeks later, the board delivered its verdict. No violation, no suspension, no action taken. She had been cleared. But something inside Maya had shifted. She understood now that the truth could be on your side and still not be enough. That reputation, hard-earned and deeply personal, could be shattered with just one anonymous whisper. She didn't feel anger, just a deep, quiet fatigue. But within it, a clarity bloomed about who she was and what she would never again let the world take from her. That night, Logan invited Maya to dinner at a small restaurant overlooking the Hudson River. No fancy wine, no elaborate candles, just soft lighting and quiet words shared between two people tired of the world's noise. They ate simply, Maya's favorite pasta and Logan's usual salad that he rarely finished. After dessert, Logan pulled out a small box from his coat pocket. Maya tensed for a moment. "It's not a ring," he said quickly with a faint smile. She exhaled, part relief, part hesitation. He opened the box. Inside was a single key, the familiar key to the house she had once stayed in, once walked away from, once missed more than she dared admit. "I'm not proposing," Logan said. "I'm not asking you to promise forever. I just want you to know. The door is still open. But this time, no more halfway. No more temporary. No more hiding." Maya looked at the key. It was small, quiet, but in that moment, it carried more weight than any grand speech. She looked at the key, fingers brushing over its cold metal. For a long moment, she thought about all the doors she had once walked away from, all the chances she'd been too afraid to believe in. "I can't promise forever," she replied honestly. "All I can promise is to try, just once, with everything I have. And if it falls apart, at least I'll know I lived it fully." Logan nodded, like that answer meant more to him than any vow ever could. They didn't say much after that. They didn't have to. Under the golden light, Maya took the key and slipped it into her coat pocket, like a promise that needed no words. 1 year later, Logan's house no longer felt like a cold mansion on a hill. It was filled with tiny footsteps, the smell of fresh muffins on Sunday mornings, and the soundtrack of children's songs mixed with giggles. Maya didn't return as a guest. She came back as part of the home. Lily ran through the hallways calling Miles her baby brother, even though he wasn't old enough to understand. They didn't need shared blood to be a family, just real hugs and bedtime kisses. Logan was no longer the man standing behind glass, unsure how to step into life. He changed diapers, cooked breakfasts, and read bedtime stories in a clumsy voice that made both kids laugh until they hiccuped. And Maya, she was still a nurse, but now she worked part-time. The rest of her hours were dedicated to the Miles and Lily Foundation, a non-profit she and Logan co-founded to support single mothers and newborns without support. She didn't want fame, she wanted impact, gently used strollers donated with love, free counseling sessions, circles where women could speak their fears without judgment. People asked why they hadn't gotten married. Logan would just smile and say, "We choose each other every day. We don't need a certificate to prove that." Some didn't understand. But that was okay. Love didn't need a wedding, only presents. One evening, after both kids were asleep, Maya and Logan sat on the front porch. The breeze was soft. Garden lights shimmered. Maya rested her head on his shoulder, her hand wrapped around his, not tightly, but with purpose. "What do you think," she asked, "if we never have a wedding?" She wasn't doubting. She was just curious. Logan looked at her and smiled. "I think what we've built is stronger than any vow." She said nothing, but her silence was full of peace. Because in the end, what they'd created wasn't a fairy tale. It was a home. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And in this world, maybe that was more than enough. Thank you for staying until the very end. If this story moved you, made you pause, reflect, or simply feel seen, leave me a comment. I'd love to know where you're listening from and what part of the story stayed with you. And if you want to hear more stories like this, imperfect but real, don't forget to subscribe. Because as long as you believe in love, I'll keep telling stories worth believing in.